Welcome back to our channel. We are James and Kelly, and today we are installing
our heater, a Webasto airtop gasoline heater. Wow, look at it. This is our Webasto heater. We bought this Webasto heater from an authorized North American dealer because we wanted to get all of the parts needed for an American car. We did not buy one off Amazon because all of those are European. We wanted a heater in our vehicle because we wanted to keep the van temperature controlled during the winter months, and this was what we thought was the best option. It is gasoline powered, which taps directly into our gasoline tank, and it runs off a very tiny amount of gasoline. So we can keep this van heated for a long time without using electricity. For the Webasto heater, we did upgrade the temperature control from the dial to our smart temp thermostat. We did this because we wanted something that would be able to control the heater just by the air temperature, and we wouldn't really have to fiddle with it all that much. So we thought this was definitely a really good buy. Everything you need to install the Webasto heater came with the kit except for the gasoline tapper, the subfloor extender, and of course your tools. Now let's check out how we installed our heater. Time to drill a hole for our heater. I have my 4-inch circle saw, which we bought new. It's a Milwaukee one. Hopefully it'll be good enough to drill a hole through our floor and the van floor. I'm going to start with drilling a pilot hole through the bottom. Before we mount our Webasto heater, we had to pick a good enough spot inside and also underneath our van. So I went underneath the van and located kind of like a flat spot that we could use, and then tried to find out where it would be on our floor, and we put a little piece of tape down there. That is going to line up in a great spot for us because it's directly where our bench is, which is where we planned. So hopefully it all fits, and it's time to drill that hole. Our pilot hole went through right here. It is about 3.5 inches away from where we thought it would be, and it's a little bit closer to the wall than we were hoping for, but I think it'll still be okay. We can just change the direction of the heater and use just some vents to push the air where we want it to be. But now it's time to put the hole in. Come on now.
Are you through?
What? Through.
Can you see the ground? Well, hello.
That's not encouraging.
Got it.
Now I need to add some paint to cover all the fresh metal so we don't have any rust. With our hole cut, one of the first things we need to do is install this gasket. They want you to use this gasket if you go through your floor and not just through the metal, because this is here to protect your floor and to make sure none of the exhaust gets back into your van. So I need to weld this not only to my floor but also to the metal floor. And we are using this red RTV sealant. I'm hoping to put a really thick glob. You can see that I've put a little mark where the floor is, or the metal floor is. So I'm going to put a really thick glob all the way around here, and then all the way around here, and then kind of just keep it going to get a really good seal.
Boy, it's messy. James went a little overboard on the sealant.
While the silicone dries around our gasket, I am going to start with setting up the gas line that we'll have that'll go to our gas tank. You can actually access it in a Ram ProMaster through this compartment right here. There's a bunch of videos online, and there's a neat little attachment that we will use to attach it to our gas tank. However, Kelly and I unfortunately forgot to order that part. We thought it came with the Webasto kit that we got, but it unfortunately is an add-on. So we just ordered that because I went through all the parts today. I'm going to go ahead and thread the gas line up to here and then just tape it on, and then I will attach it once we get that part. I got the lid off. Unfortunately, all of these plastic bits that were holding the screws in for this top plate were broken. So when I tried taking the plate off, the screws wouldn't come out, so I eventually just got a screwdriver and tried to pry it open, and it came off instantly. And that's when I could tell that all these plastic bits are pretty much broke. This is the spot that we'll be using to put in our fuel attachment. It's going to go right there. I'm going to try to thread a line, because this is our gas tank right here, and I should be able to thread a line just right through here. So here we are underneath the van, and I have my fuel line coming out from right up there. It's kind of easy if you kind of try to angle it to this corner. And now the goal is to put this up on this wall, and this is going to hold the fuel pump. Now I would like to put this fuel pump as high up into this space as possible. However, in order to do that, I need to get a rib nut in there, and I really don't have a good angle except for right here where it starts to curve, because then I can move the rib nut gun a little bit to the left. I had to move this cord out of the way. This is my emergency brake line. It's just attached to right here. I just took off the nut, and I'll put that back on once I'm done. But I'm first going to drill a hole into the wall and see if I can get a rib nut into it, so I can set the pump right up there, and it'll be nice and protected from anything that might bounce up underneath the carriage. Because we are installing our heater, Webasto heater, into our floor and not our floor of the van, the metal floor of the van, they gave us these metal little screw things that go into our floor, and they're real tight in there right now. And then I have other screws that will go into those. So the Webasto heater will go on top of our floor and not be attached to the metal floor of the van. With the kit that they give us, they also give us a bunch of split conduit that you're supposed to use to protect the fuel line. So I just threaded the split conduit up from the bottom of the van using the fuel line up to here. So if there's any sharp metal pieces that the fuel line might rub against, it's now protected by the split conduit. Now we are mounting our heater to the floor. So my line that's running from the fuel tank is going to my fuel pump, which has been attached to the bottom, and then I have another line running up here, which will then attach to our heater. So now I'm ready to go ahead and mount the heater to the floor. So they give you several different pieces to do that. One of them being this mounting plate. I've already put the rubber piece that goes on here onto here, and then we also have this like foam that they give you, which is supposed to give you an airtight seal so no fumes can get back into the car. And then in the foam, because we're mounting to our floor, I have to put these spacers in it to get the right crushing depth according to the instructions. So I put those in there, and now I need to attach the plate to the heater. And maybe it's if you're switching it to a new spot. I had to take a couple steps back I got it all the way installed, and then I went under to be like, okay, now to attach everything. And I realized that I have this 4-inch hole that everything is in, and I have to tighten all of these like clamps to everything, which would be impossible with it being in this hole. So I took it out and am now attaching all of the tubes and piping that need to be attached to the bottom before I install it back into the floor. So there are several things that come out of the bottom. One being I have this intake hose. Also from the intake hose port is the power for the pump. We have the inlet for the gasoline, and then we have our exhaust pipe right here. So I'm going to put this long stainless steel exhaust pipe on it now and tighten it in. Last thing I need to install is our fuel line. So got it coming up right here. I gotta set this on the ground. Oh, hopefully. Now my task is to route where our exhaust pipe goes, and the Webasto kit came with these brackets for me to use to bolt underneath the van. Weirdly enough, they came with M6 bolts, which at first I thought would be annoying, but then I remembered that we have M6 rib nuts from our rib nut kit, so I can just use these. It all works out perfectly. And of course, right underneath the van, there's already a hole that I can use. That's an M6. So no need for extra work, which I love. Now have everything connected. I went back through and zip tied all of the cords and everything up to make sure it's nice and secure. So now it's time to go inside and do some wiring.
The connectors in as much detail as possible, just in case something changes in your version of the harness.
How's it going?
I'm hooking up the wires, and I'm using this video from Vanlife Outfitters. I think it's a very well done video. If you're definitely gonna hook up your own Webasto heater, look at their video. It has tons of great tips and basically walks you through every step. Anyway, let's back to what I'm doing. I've got all the power cables plugged in, and I've also got the cables plugged in that will go to our smart temperature control. All that I can do right now is pretty much done. I've got everything wired and zip tied down below. The only thing we're waiting for now is the attachment to plug it into our gasoline tank, and then getting it power and connecting it to our batteries. But that'll be at a different time. And of course later we will also add some ducts so we can direct the airflow where we want it. But that'll be when we build more of our furniture. Our fuel attachment has finally came in, and I went ahead and attached it. It comes with this L bracket that's bigger on one side to attach to the fuel attachment, and then I went ahead and put our fuel filter on the other side. And now it's time to put it on and then attach it to the fuel line that I ran up to our fuel tank. I've installed the tap into our fuel tank. So we had to buy the fuel tap that just clicks onto the fuel tank. This part and this L were the only extra parts that I had to buy for this process. The fuel filter comes with the kit. Make sure that the arrow on the filter is pointing the direction that the fuel flows, and then it attaches to your line that goes underneath the van. This is our completed setup for our Webasto heater underneath the van. We can start with the threaded line that comes from our gas tank, and it runs directly to the fuel pump. And the fuel pump will then push all of the gasoline into the Webasto heater from underneath. Also from the fuel pump, we have its electronic mesh, It comes with enough wire to get a pretty good distance away from the fuel tank, but because we're so close, I just coiled it up right here and zip tied it tight to underneath. Also coming from the bottom of our Webasto heater is the intake and the exhaust pipes. The intake and the exhaust do need to be separated from each other because you do not want to be intaking air from the exhaust. So I have the intake coming around this little brace, and it goes up into the area right here. And it also faces up to make sure no dirt or water gets into the intake. For the exhaust, I have it coming out and I have it bolted all the way along here at a slow sloping down, and it goes outside of the van, all the way outside from underneath, because you do not want any exhaust piling up underneath your van, because then of course it would get into our intake. The installation for the Webasto heater was pretty straightforward. Everything that you needed to do could be found in the manual, and if you needed any more tips, you can check out the Vanlife Outfitters Webasto heater installation video, which I used because it really helped me understand what each thing was. The last thing I still need to do underneath the van is prime the fuel line, which is basically drawing gasoline into this line up to the pump. That way we do not have any misfires in our Webasto heater when we first turn it on. To prime it, you need to take off the line right where it goes into the fuel pump. And so I've had it attached this whole time, but now we're ready to prime it. So you have to take it off. Already got it. Boom. I use this syringe to pull gas into the pump. That way the pump can now easily push gasoline into our Webasto heater when we start it. We've had this hooked up for a couple months now, so gas has already been kind of leaking down the line. So it only took just a little pull for me to get gas all the way up to the pump. We've got some of our furniture built, so we're going to go ahead and install all the ducting we need onto our Webasto heater. We bought two different types of ducting. This is our output ducting. This is where all of the heat will come through. And then we also have the intake ducting. This does not need to be any heat regulated, so it's just cool air that'll run into the Webasto heater. One thing we're doing is making sure that these ducts are as far away from each other as possible, so we don't have a small circulating circuit for a Webasto heater where the heat goes directly into the intake. You want them separated so that the heat will spread throughout the van before going back into the intake. The layout for our ducts is our output will go out from underneath our bench that we will have right here, and our intake will go into our wall and intake from right underneath our stove cabinet right in front of our bed. This is the farthest distance that we could get the two ducts from each other because we can't have the intake coming from our garage. It has to be in the same living area as the room that you're trying to heat.
We have finagled a way to get our intake hose to underneath our stove cabinet. It did require us to cut down our furring strip that we made and then rebuild a support at the top. This is what they mean by everything builds on top of each other and always plan ahead, but it still worked out and we're golden. Now, in order to get it to flow, we're just going to attach it here. Nothing's set up yet. We will have to clamp this on with a 2.5 inch clamp for the intake hose, but since we're not going to be installing our furniture yet, we still have other things we need to do. This is just kind of giving us the idea of where everything's going.
Nothing gets stuck behind it.
Our intake is now going through both our couch and our stove cabinet. We do have this other hole right here, and that is for the 12-volt electricity that attaches into this into the Webasto heater that controls our smart temp. We have two pieces for the outtake that will go through our couch. We're going to have an extension of our couch that we haven't built just yet, but we will have this bottom piece right here, so from right above where the electrical hole is, kind of a flat top so that nothing gets into our heater. It will run through this portion as well as the second little square that we'll have of a cabinet. Then the outtake vent will go behind, attach right here using a 2.5-inch clamp. We will then attach a second hose on top of it, like so, and then the outtake vent will come out our couch. That way hot air will flow into our van, and then the intake will be right underneath here, right before our bed starts, which hopefully giving us a nice circulation. This is all we can do for our ducting right now until we have even more things built, which is definitely going to be in a later video.
We've decided to go ahead and test our Webasto heater to make sure everything's working properly. First thing we need to do is wire it up. We've already ran a wire to it. We didn't need to run a wire because they gave us this really long conduit that will pretty much reach anywhere in the van. But since we have already run the wire, we're gonna go ahead and use it. I'm gonna hook up our smart temp thermostat now. We've ran the wire from the heater all the way up through our ceiling to this spot, which we have named our control panel. So this is the wire right here. There's only 2 connection points that you need for this model, and they just go in super easily. I'm just gonna have it dangle for right now, but now I'm gonna hook up power to the Webasto heater. The wiring mesh did come with hookups, so you could hook up directly to a battery, but we've already got our whole electrical system worked up, so I'm just gonna cut these off. One, a little wasteful. 2. I'm just using lever nuts to hook up the positive to positive and negative to negative. Now we actually need to plug it into the Webasto heater. This has one connection port that you put in.
It is a 15 amp fuse, so we're going to attach it to our fuse box right here. We will have a video kind of explaining all of our electrical stuff later on in our van build. This fuse box is really nice because as soon as we connect the wires together, it automatically lights up so we know where the fuse actually needs to go. And so I'm going to put the 15 amp fuse in.
Alright, look at that. Feel the drive. No idea what to do now. I downloaded the Smart Temp 3.0 app, and I can't access it because this has Bluetooth, but we do have to set up our heater first. It even sends me a signal for what our batteries are at.
That's crazy. That's what our batteries are. Pretty cool.
That's pretty funny. So set temperature 72 and it's 79 degrees outside, which is correct. Should we try to turn it on?
Mm-hmm. Oh, I hear it. Oh, it's going.
I've turned it on in the app and we can hear the fan running right now. It should take like 5 minutes for the heat to actually start coming out, but it's also really quiet, so it's like I can't tell if the combustion's turning on or if it's just like the fan's running, because it also has a smart temperature control to where it reads the temperature, and then only when it goes below that temperature does it actually turn the heat on.
So I can really hear it starting to run a lot more now. James has set the temperature to higher.
I think it's pushing out hotter air. Oh yeah, that's warm air, baby! Yeah, I did it. It turned on. That's great.
We're ready for winter!
Wow. That's awesome.
After 2 long days of hard work, James fully installed our Webasto gasoline heater.
We are now ready for some cold van life adventures, and we'll stay nice and warm in any cold environment. So that's nice. Thanks for watching, and make sure to subscribe to our channel to check out our entire van build series. And we'll see you in the next one.
Bye!
Bye!